Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Behind the Bulletin. Today, we dive into a story that has set the internet ablaze. A moment so subtle yet so explosive that fans can't stop talking about it. Yoona's unexpected jealousy erupted the instant Junho was seen chatting with another woman, but what really happened behind that reaction? Was it a fleeting emotion? A hidden truth slipping through? Or something far deeper than anyone imagined? Stay with us, because the answers might surprise you. Let's uncover the full story, right now. The moment the cameras flashed and the crowd roared. No one expected the atmosphere to shift so sharply. Yoona entered the venue with her usual elegance, her calm smile lighting up the room, while Junho followed with his confident stride, the two of them radiating that familiar synergy fans had grown to adore. Everything seemed perfectly harmonious. Until a brief, seemingly harmless conversation shattered the balance within seconds. It began when a young woman approached Junho near the press wall. She greeted him with an enthusiastic smile, her hand lingering a moment too long on his arm. Junho, always polite, responded warmly, leaning slightly closer to hear her over the noise. But from across the hall, Yoona's expression changed in an instant. Her smile froze, her posture tightened, and her eyes narrowed almost imperceptibly, like a storm cloud forming without warning. Fans who replayed the footage later swore they could pinpoint the exact second her jealousy surfaced, a flash of raw emotion she had never allowed the public to see before. The tension grew even sharper when the woman laughed loudly at something Junho said, placing her hand on his shoulder as if they were sharing a private joke. Junho didn't seem to think anything of it, but Yoona's steps slowed as she approached, her gaze locked onto the scene with a mixture of disbelief and controlled irritation. The contrast between her composed facade and the swirling emotion beneath it was unmistakable. Witnesses reported that even the air seemed to thicken as she arrived beside them. Junho turned, smiling brightly at her, unaware of the storm hidden behind her eyes. Yoona returned the smile, but it was tight, forced, her tone soft yet edged with something sharp. The woman, sensing the sudden shift, quickly excused herself, leaving the pair in a silence that felt heavier than the noise around them. Junho, puzzled, asked you if Yoona was alright, but she simply brushed past him, heading toward the waiting area with unusually brisk steps. That was when cameras caught the most telling moment. Yoona exhaling deeply, her jaw clenched, eyes flicking back toward Junho with a mix of frustration and vulnerability. She wasn't simply irritated. She was hurt. It was a rare crack in her polished persona. A glimpse of something unfiltered and startlingly human. Junho followed her backstage shortly afterward, concern etched across his face. While the public couldn't hear their conversation, their body language told its own dramatic story. Yoona crossed her arms defensively, avoiding his gaze, while Junho leaned toward her, trying to understand what had gone wrong. When Yoona finally met his eyes, her voice trembled slightly, though the microphones nearby only caught faint murmurs. The emotional tension between them was unmistakably real, and fans watching live sensed that something deeper was unfolding beneath the surface. The moment sent social media into chaos. Clips circulated within minutes, already edited with slow motion, zoom-ins, and overlays highlighting Yoona's shifting expressions. Theories exploded everywhere. Were they secretly dating? Was this jealousy a slip that confirmed fans' suspicions? Or was there another hidden layer to this sudden emotional surge? No one knew for sure. But one thing was undeniable: Yoona's reaction wasn't casual. It was visceral, personal, and charged with a level of intensity that shocked even longtime followers. The press backstage reported that Junho looked distressed afterward, glancing repeatedly toward the exit where Yoona had walked out moments earlier. Staff members whispered among themselves, sensing the fragile atmosphere. Something had shifted that night. Something unspoken yet powerful enough to rattle both stars in a way no scripted drama ever could. And as Yoona reappeared later with a composed smile, pretending nothing had happened, the mystery only deepened. Her eyes, however, betrayed the truth. The jealousy hadn't faded, still burning quietly beneath her calm exterior, waiting for the next moment to ignite. The hours following the incident only intensified the mystery. The event wrapped and the two stars prepared to leave. Staff members noticed an uncharacteristic distance between them. Junho, usually relaxed and playful around Yoona, walked with a quiet seriousness, occasionally glancing her way as if searching for the right moment to speak. Yoona, meanwhile, maintained a perfectly controlled expression. Yet her steps were quicker than usual, her hands tightly clasped as though holding herself together. They reached the private parking area. Witnesses described a moment that felt straight out of a high-tension drama. Junho called out to her softly, but Yoona hesitated before turning around, her eyes shimmering with a conflict she couldn't quite hide. The light from the overhead fixtures cast long shadows on their figures, amplifying every subtle movement. Junho approached slowly, his posture cautious, almost pleading. Who later analyzed distant photos of the scene pointed out how even his shoulders seemed to sag, as if weighed down by confusion and concern. Yoona stood still, her face unreadable, but her gaze flickered with an emotional intensity that suggested she had been battling her own thoughts since the moment she saw Junho speaking with that woman. Junho spoke first, his expression earnest, his gestures gentle. Though no one could hear their words, the atmosphere was thick with unspoken vulnerability. Yoona finally responded, her voice low but sharp enough that witnesses felt the emotional impact even without hearing the content. Junho's eyes widened slightly, not in anger. A sudden realization that Yoona had been genuinely affected. The tension shifted. It was no longer just confusion, it was exposure. Yoona's guard cracked as her voice seemed to tremble, her eyes drifting away as if ashamed of her own reaction. Junho stepped closer, instinctively reaching out, but stopped halfway, unsure whether his touch would comfort or worsen the moment. Came the scene that fans would replay endlessly, Yoona exhaling shakily, lifting her hand to her forehead, whispering something that looked painfully honest. Junho's expression softened instantly, his eyes warm with understanding. He took a small step closer, his tone soothing. Present steady. Yoona's stiff posture eased, her shoulders lowering, as if she finally allowed herself to breathe. For a few seconds, they simply stood facing each other, around them fading into insignificance. It was a moment too intimate, raw for too public. Figures who always controlled their image to perfection. It didn't last. The so-and of a camera shutter snapped them back to reality. A reporter had managed to capture the scene from a distance. Junho immediately shifted, positioning himself closer to, as if shielding her, while Yoona straightened posture and quickly wiped the emotion from her face. The vulnerability vanished, replaced by the polished professionalism she had mastered for years. But traces of the moment lingered. Junho walked her to her car, the door gently, his movements hesitant yet active. Yoona paused before entering, giving him a glance filled with unspoken meaning, something between gratitude and lingering frustration. Junho offered a reassuring smile, but the look in his betrayed a deeper worry. After Yoona left, Junho remained in the parking area for a long moment, staring at the ground as if replaying everything that had just happened. The incident clearly lingered in his mind. Meanwhile, social media erupted as more angles of their interaction surfaced. Fans dissected every frame. Subtle jealousy, Junho's confusion, leading tension backstage, and the emotionally charged parking lot moment. Some insisted it confirmed their long-rumored chemistry. Others believed it hinted at a deeper, private bond already shaken by jealousy. Next morning, the headlines had gone viral. Analysts, bloggers, and fans across forums speculated intensely about what Yoona must have felt, how such a composed star could reveal such raw emotion in the span of a few minutes. Beneath all the noise, one truth remained impossible to ignore: Yoona's reaction wasn't accidental. It wasn't a misunderstanding. As instinctive, exposed, and entirely unscripted. A window into something far more complex than friendship. Junho's response, gentle, careful, undeniably invested, only deepened the questions surrounding whatever truly exists between them. Whether this moment becomes a forgotten spark or the beginning of a story they can no longer hide. One thing is clear: the night Yoona's jealousy surfaced changed everything. And the world is still watching for what happens next. As the dust begins to settle, one thing remains certain: the unexpected wave of jealousy that flashed across Yoona's expression has changed the dynamic between her and Junho in a way no scripted moment ever could. The tension, the vulnerability, the silent conversations between their eyes. Everything from that night has left fans questioning what truth lies beneath their polished public image. A momentary slip of emotion, or a glimpse into something deeper. Something neither of them is ready to reveal? Only time will tell. What happened behind those closed doors? Quiet spaces between their words continues to captivate viewers who sense that this story is far from over. And as new footage, new clues, new reactions emerge, the world watches with breath held, waiting for the next chapter to unfold. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on this emotional and electrifying journey. Your support, your curiosity, passion are what drive this channel forward every single day. Stay tuned, stay alert, and stay with us, because at Behind the Bulletin, real story is always just beginning.